From the Post Building in downtown North St. Louis, this is Inside City.
And here we are in Inside City again, and I have the enormous pleasure of introducing my friend and one of the most iconic and memorable emerging brands in St. Louis, Tamara Keefe.
Thank you.
Welcome, Tamara, to the Post Building here in downtown St. Louis. And again, this is what we're doing. We are introducing the emerging brands, the new generation of brands and products that they provide a new face, a new, identity for this city that we all love, St. Louis. I know you are not from St. Louis.
Not
I know
originally,
you
well. No.
Not originally, but you are St. Louis.
But
St.
I
Louis
am
in
now.
Heart.
I
Right,
am.
exactly.
I am, absolutely.
And the fact that Clementines has brought so much joy to our communities. I mean, one of the, if you want to live in St. Louis, anyone thinking about moving here, if there's a Clementine in one of the neighborhoods, it's a good neighborhood. So I think it's an indicator. It's an indicator, right? So, but I'm excited to bring you here because you just won another award. I mean, you've been collecting awards every year for your product, but this award that came out yesterday, it's very important. Basically, the Small Business Association nominates one small business to be the best small business of the year. And Tamara Keefe and Clementines was selected. So you're going to be representing us in Washington, D.C.
I am.
So let's talk about that, how that happened, and let's talk a little bit about it.
I have no idea. I guess it was the deputy director of the state of Missouri, apparently goes through and researches all of the small businesses who have been leveraging the SBA to grow. And they apparently came across us and they liked what we were doing and they liked the impact that we were having on the city and nominated me for the best small business person of the year for the state.
That is tremendous. And, I've seen your evolution, from
We've
long
known
time
each
ago.
other a long time.
Back in Lafayette Square when Clementines was a dream, part of a neighborhood dinner club.
Yes.
And you were, you used to bring your flavors and, kind of like testing with our friends in Lafayette Square. And, seeing the evolution of this dream has been fascinating. So tell me about, how many, you have like 8 stores right now?
We have 8 parlors. Yes. We have 7 in Missouri and 1 in Illinois. And we will have 3 more this year in Kansas City, and we'll have 1 in Bentonville in Northwest Arkansas.
Wow. That's incredible. So what would you, if you would have to synthesize the key of your success, what are those things, for the young entrepreneurs in St. Louis and beyond? Because we know people hear our podcast beyond St. Louis, what would you think is the key of the Clementine success? What's the recipe?
Well, besides making the world's best ice cream, I think Clementine's is a brand like homegrown out of St. Louis and supported by people who live here. I think one of the keys is that people see something, they recognize something, and they support it, whatever that looks like. And definitely having that creative flexibility to really craft and curate our organoleptic experience in Parlor.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
Has definitely set us apart nationwide. Well, we don't live in a transactional economy anymore, right? We live in this experiential world, and we want all kinds of really interesting and cool experiences. And I think for us at Clementine's, over the past 10 years, we had crafted and curated this really special experience in Parlor. And at the time, I don't think we knew exactly what it was called. We just knew that we were being very intentional about everything, not just from our product, but every sightline, every sound, every interaction, every smell.
The smells.
Right? So later, I was to discover that the term was called an organoleptic experience. And really, we've coined that in retail now. Not that other brands and people haven't done it through the years, but we really talk about it as the Clementine's organoleptic retail experience. And I think that's why we win. St. Louis is this great town to try things, find out what works, what doesn't work, and to be able to do that and not break the bank or lose the farm or your house in the
Right.
process, I think is a very special and very unique thing about St. Louis is that everything here is so accessible to do and to try. It's really quite amazing.
Yeah, so I do, as a designer, and knowing your, impeccable taste, the fact that yes, in the Clementine experience, you do engage all the senses when
Mhm.
you step in. So the visuals, the nostalgia, the component of the use of color, the use of
Design.
yeah, the design components, the storytelling, and there is always like a nod to the past, but in a contemporary way, which I think is very interesting. And the smell, of course, the fresh made cones and
Yep.
all the sugars, all that, and the flavors. I think it's a very interesting. I always love the concept, the naughty and nice. The fact that some flavors are kind of like with alcoholic components for adults, and another one for family. So I thought, from as a product, Clementine has been always like a very innovative product. But there's also a component about you. I think the fact that you are a relentless innovator, and the fact that you have put so much into this. Tell us a little bit about your story. How do you end up? One day you just decided to open a parlor. A ice cream shop. How do you get there? How do you did it
Well, as you know, because we've been friends pretty
for a
much
while?
since then, since 2008, 2009,
2009. 2009.
2009,
Yeah.
right? And it's 2025. So for a long
Wow.
time, I worked in corporate America for over 20 years, right? I had a really high position. I had my dream job. I was traveling all over the world and I was traveling nonstop, if you remember.
Hmm.
Hence, I was not a good dog mommy
Right.
at one
That's it.
point.
Puccino. I remember the
Puccino.
dog.
That's right. That's right. Um, and I was exhausted. I had this dream job, and from the outside, I think it looked like I had this magnificent life. But at the end of the day, I wasn't really happy, and I just wanted to do something different, and I wanted to take my life back. And quite frankly, I was making a lot of other people really, really rich, and I said, maybe I should do this for
Right.
myself. But it was really about more. I wanted to find joy
Hmm.
in my everyday life, and as you'll recall, I always complained St. Louis didn't have great ice cream, and I always bitched our neighborhood didn't have an ice
Right.
cream shop. And no one makes better ice cream than I did. And I happened to come from the food industry. So I
Right.
had, I ran a $70 million business. I had this big brand. I managed people. I had all this business experience, yet I did marketing, brand, and strategy for my whole career. And you combine that with the fact that I was coming out of the food industry and I knew how to make food products. I'd been in food manufacturing plants and I knew how to do it safely in the right way. And I knew how to scale. And so it's like I took all of these things in my whole career that really set me up
Mhm.
as this girl who just makes ice cream,
Right.
right? That I never would have imagined over the years that all the things that I did really did set me up to do this
Mhm.
here in St. Louis.
Yeah. Sometimes people don't realize that the evolution of as a business and as a brand is really the juxtaposition and kind of like going back to all the things you've done before and then
Hmm.
putting that into focus and into one product, one brand like Clementine's. So, what's in the future? What's next?
I'm taking over the world. No,
Havana. Let's go to Havana.
oh, I just got back from there.
I know.
No, I think we're ready to take Clementine's regional and national, right? We're getting ready to go into Kansas City this year. We're going into Bentonville. We're expanding in the Midwest. We're growing to 40 parlors in 5 years. We're going to start franchising. We're going into grocery. So hold on tight, world. Clementine's is coming.
No, that's lovely. So you have a very strong career also in the business side. So it's not just about the ice cream, which is a whole world. And there is a training component, and you have, we've worked in some campaigns for, National Ice Cream Days and the ice cream for breakfast.
Mhm.
And we've done interesting, beautiful things in the product side. But I'm interested. Let's talk about your business side. So you're part of EO. you take international trips with CEOs of all over the world to stay inspired and stay, current in your leadership techniques. So let's talk about that, EO.
Yeah, I whether it's EO or YPO, because I'm a member of both, I think having the ability to have your own personal board of advisors, so to speak, and to learn and grow from each other and from other CEOs and people who have businesses and companies that are so much bigger than mine, who've faced all the same things that I face every day, and the ability to help each other out and inspire each other and learn and grow, it has definitely helped me significantly grow my business and grow my company, because I have all these people who are personally invested, as I'm personally invested, to help them grow and succeed. And so it's being smart enough to leverage people who are smarter than us, better than us, wiser than us, richer than us, more inspired than us sometimes, right? Because we all have those days. And seeking those good mentors and folks out that we respect to help us really learn, scale, and grow.
Yeah, sometimes scaling. It's such an interesting. It's difficult. No,
It's hard.
It's very hard to grow.
It looks easy
a
from the
business.
outside, but it's really, really hard.
Right, because people see the timeline. We even have we don't catch. We spend too much time.
Enough.
We don't see each other enough, right? And then when I see there's a new store and there's some, there is this crazy exponential growth. So how do you prepare for growth?
It's a lot of hard work. I think you have to be willing sometimes, in order to speed up, sometimes you have to slow down, and you have to build the infrastructure and the systems and, get the right people in the right seats. And sometimes that takes a little longer than you would like it to, right? I'm going on 10 years and I have 8 parlors. And for some people that may seem fast, and for other people that might seem really slow. But,
Depending on the perspective, right?
Yeah, I mean, but I bootstrapped it, right? I did this all on my own. I never had investors until this year, when we're doing our first capital raise so that we can continue to grow in other markets. But it's about doing the right things at the right time and being intentional and informed and taking those calculated risks and being willing to live with the sacrifices. As you know, in the beginning, when I started Clementine's, I took no paycheck for 3 years, right? And there were many times I called and invited myself over to your house for dinner because I didn't have any money. So, people don't see those days, right? Right? Really. And it's being willing to make those sacrifices to grow your business and to put everything back into it and to downsize your life and be willing to give up everything to put it back into the business and be willing to live on far less, up until I recently moved in with my fiance, I still lived in my 800 square foot house in Lafayette Square after 10 years. And most of the people who work for me and live in much bigger houses and drive much nicer cars and do all those things than me. But it was really important for me to make sure that I could live with less because I wanted my people to have more and I needed to have good people. And so there's always that give and take balance of we're working our ass off, right? But sometimes you have to be willing to put it all into the business to keep going to the next level, knowing that there will be rewards that will come in the end. But at the end of the day, I love what I'm doing. And, after 10 years, we have 238 families that are supported by Clementines. Wow. So, that's amazing for me.
Yeah, generate the job generation of that, just from an idea. I think that's always a component that it's so important, understanding that there are families around your dream, right? So let's go back to that first parlor at 18th Street in Lafayette Square.
Sure.
So when was the time? Because you had a one shop for a while, and then what was the breakthrough to go to the next one?
Well, if you remember, we had 7 and 8 hour lines in the summer that never stopped, that went around the block. And I in remembering back, I just wanted another parlor open to alleviate the lines, really.
Okay.
That was really my motivator. Well, and of course, I didn't have any, I barely got the first shop opened. And then it took 2 years for me to get Demon opened. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is great. We're going to get this second parlor and the lines will alleviate. Well, guess what? They didn't. We had 7 and 8 hour lines at Demon, and we still do in our parlors in the summer.
Even in the winter. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people don't wait in line that long in the winter, but
Right, but there's people in the winter in the month.
But it was really about, I grew as I could grow from profits and as I had the money to grow, and where which neighborhoods said that they wanted a Clementine's, right? That was really driven by our expansion, was who and what neighborhoods screamed the loudest. So
Right. So at the end, it's really relying on the community and understanding, that's why we always say it's not just about the brand, it's also about the audience.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you have to, brand development must include the development of the audience that's ready for that brand, for that product, for that experience. What, from all the neighborhoods, which is the one that you feel responds the most? What is the one that you feel is more either profitable or engaged, or, how can we measure that?
I don't know that you can measure that, because I think all of our parlor neighborhoods are super engaged. I mean, when people talk about Clementines, they're like, well, my shop is in Kirkwood, or my shop is Lafayette. So people don't talk about it as just another place. It's their shop. And so people have ownership in their parlors that are in their neighborhoods, which we love. But I'll always have to go back to Lafayette, right? It was the neighborhood who started buying ice cream before I ever had the parlor open. I mean, if you remember, I used to go to people's houses in the neighborhood, the big houses, who would have Christmas parties, and I would bring my ice cream for free, and they would let me put out a sign-up sheet, and so that their guests could order pints. And so I mean, I guess when I think about that, Lafayette, which will always be my
your go-to,
my favorite, my home. I mean, because it was the Lafayette Square neighborhood and the neighbors who lived there that really helped me get started, and who supported me and came to my worst, terrible little corner and the weirdest part of the neighborhood to my little ice cream shop that,
Right, because 18th Street was kind of like on the verge of it.
Yeah, it was on the verge. It was on the edgy part. There were these big, ugly concrete things there. It's not as beautiful as it is today.
Right. Now there's other businesses. There are other things there, but I remember at the time it was like the farther. It
was the worst corner in the nicest neighborhood, right? It was.
I know. Yeah. So another thing that I feel was really innovative that we did was that first campaign for the partnership with Tiffany's. So I remember, in our brand strategy sessions, we arrived to the conclusion, okay, let's make Clementines the Tiffany's of ice cream. And then it was the 60th anniversary of Breakfast at Tiffany's. So we kind of like created this campaign. Play on that. And kind of like, it was like, ice cream for breakfast at Clementine's. And then the whole illustration, and we created this new thing of, going to dress up in the middle of the winter as
in pajamas and pearls. Yeah.
PJs and pearls. Right. So I've always been fascinated by the fact that we created a St. Louis tradition.
Yeah, I mean, I think ice cream for breakfast was kind of a thing.
Yeah,
it was different ice cream parlors, but no one did it like we did, and no one blew it up like we did. We definitely made it something where we engaged with the community, and we engaged with the city, and we gave people a reason to come out, put on their best pajamas, put on costumes, get dressed up in the middle of winter when it was sometimes 0 degrees. And people line up from 6 o'clock in the morning, and we don't open till 9, right? But it's all about being part of something. And I think at Clementine's, we've been able to create that community where people feel like they're a part of something as a customer.
Yeah, I love the fact every time I see those photos of PJs and pearls. Every year we kind of like basically we repeat the same campaign, and I think that is a very interesting way of creating this sense of permanence. I've always felt like St. Louis in general, St. Louis and the Midwest, but I haven't lived in the Midwest in general, but here in St. Louis, there is something to be said about people really crave permanence. Things that are here, things with quality, and they kind of like, they test, the passing of time. So I love the fact that Clementine's brings this sense of reassurance of this is my neighborhood, this is my ice cream, I go here. I still, every time I have a party or, it's kind of like a tradition to go to Clementine's and get the bag
Mm-hmm.
and with 6 pints. And that is like a very nice thing to bring to a party. And I'm very grateful that Cartel was part of it, like for the packaging and all that. Where do you see yourself expanding beyond ice cream? Do you want to stay in that space?
I do actually. I love ice cream, and no one does it better than we do. And I really do believe is pick your one lane, do one thing, and do it better than anybody else. Right? We don't do milkshakes. We don't do other stuff in our parlors. Like, we just make the best ice cream in this country. Like, I just focus on one thing. How we've expanded, right? We do e-commerce now. You can ship our ice cream all over the country on Goldbelly, right? We're expanding into other cities. We're going into groceries, stores all over the
Ice
country.
cream for dogs.
Yes, we do doggy ice cream. We sell our gooey butter cakes now that goes into our famous gooey butter cake ice cream. So we do some tangential things around ice cream, but really it's how do we expand our national footprint, and how do we provide the opportunity for the world to have our ice cream, because they need it. They need it in a world where the ice cream at the grocery store is paltry at best. It's full of artificial junk and crap and terrible flavors. But I have a definite perspective and viewpoint on ice cream and its place in the world and what it does for people. And I think that most big consumer packaged goods companies have gotten far away from where ice cream came from. And I'm trying to bring that back a little bit. I think if you're going to have something delicious and decadent and have great ice, then have the best ice cream that you're going to have.
Beautiful. And all the vegan options and all the things you've done
Yeah,
that are very innovative.
that's important because, 10 years ago, no one made any non-dairy ice cream that was good. And in fact, very few companies even, they made some soy frozen something, but it was disgusting. We were really the first people in mass in the country to address the vegan non-dairy market and to do it well. And that's why we have a massive cult following.
Awards. You have the awards to prove it.
I have all the awards to prove it. But I think it's really thinking about your customer and your consumer. And for me, ice cream is simple. Everyone deserves ice cream. There should be no kid that has to go to a birthday party that has some dairy intolerance or gluten intolerance that has to sit there and not participate because of those things. So for me, it was always important to make ice creams for everyone.
Would you agree that sometimes that I know you have talked about your personal story and your upbringings, when you were a child and all that. So I know it's a public knowledge and knowing, but do you feel like sometimes the more inspired leaders come from a place of struggle as a family? You grew up, in
Really
your origin
poor.
story, really poor, and then your mom, your connection with your mom. I think I always found that story so endearing.
Yeah, I think coming from really humble beginnings and discovering and the ability to make ice cream as a family and how that, changed our sphere of influence and our community and our church growing up, and how much that changed my life as a kid. It really stuck with me that the power of ice cream can change lives, right? And I say it did twice, once when I was a kid and once when I was an adult, right? Leaving my very successful 20-year corporate career to jump off a cliff and try to go make ice cream, right? That changed my life twice. So ice cream is very powerful. I talk a lot about the power of ice cream and what it does for people and communities and neighborhoods. And it's for everyone, right? It doesn't matter where you come from. Ice cream is something that's available to everyone.
Yeah. So I remember that eventually you start doing things at home, and then you had an industrial kitchen here in downtown in this area, and now you have your own space. So let's talk about that evolution. I love the fact that you were able, downtown St. Louis in a way helped you to launch that in those initial years. So how were those years when you were in the industrial kitchen here?
Yeah. So,
Where was the kitchen? Where was the place?
I started making, as you know, ice cream in my kitchen,
Right.
in
We
the
started
early
there.
days. I started there. But then, St. Louis, the city owned this, it was an incubator startup space in the
Mhm.
Grand Center.
Right.
And there was like a big shared kitchen in the middle, and then they had all these little suites around it. And I had rented like this really small, tiny suite around it, and with the shared kitchen. And that's where I started. After I moved out of my house, I moved into the shared kitchen space, and I started Clementine's there and built that out. And we were making ice cream there until we got a really big contract. And then, I found an empty ice cream factory from the 50s in Berkeley, right? But being in that shared kitchen space in the city really gave me the launch to be able
Mhm.
to do that. And then we moved into that fourth. So I think the shared kitchen space, I think I had 1,000 square feet there. And then when we transitioned to the empty ice cream factory in Berkeley, that was 4,000 square feet. And then when we really started growing and I decided to go all in and grow this thing is when we decided to build out our 25,000 square foot manufacturing space in North City. And investing in North City, as you know, is
Yes.
super important to me. But now we have capacity for 50 ice cream parlors. So now I need to go open 50. But I think having the ability and the resources and the spaces around St. Louis
Mhm.
to incubate me when I was small and have the city help support that, and then to grow into a bigger space, and then ultimately now it's a world-class FDA certified ice cream facility right here in North City. And we're in a part of the city that never had access to living wage jobs before. So
Mm.
75% of our new workforce lives within 3 miles in our back of the house, which is amazing. And so it really is investing in the city, giving back, putting our money where our mouth is. Our city doesn't change until we change, until
Absolutely.
we're willing to invest the money to do that. And I think Clementine's growth over the years is a great example of that, and just how far we've come. But it's pretty cool.
Well, I'm so happy that you came today. Finally, it took us a
Thank you.
minute, but I think this is a great an example of the things that can happen in St. Louis if you have the determination, the passion, the good product, the good people, building something, and how the city can help you grow and evolve as your brand evolves.
Yeah, I think St. Louis is such an accessible city from so many different viewpoints. I mean, the tax dollars here are put to work, right? The cost of living here is ridiculously
Hmm.
cheap compared to many other places in the country. People are so open to meeting and to helping and to connecting. And I think there's this energy in the city. There's this energy to do new things and to create cool things and different things. Um, it's an amazing vibe, and it's a great place to do it, not unlike Kansas City. I think the Midwest gets a bad rap because we're in all these flyover cities, right?
Right.
Everybody thinks everything happens in LA or Chicago or New York, but that's not true. So many amazing things are happening in all these small Midwestern cities, which is really awesome. Just nobody knows about it. So
Mhm.
that's really it's like we're like the best kept secret.
Well, thank you so much for coming today. This
Thanks for
was
having me.
Inside City, and as you see, it was simple.